Oh boy, I sure do love my DM staples. I hope nobody negates my Monster Reborn.
You triggered my trap card!
The game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has over 10,000 printed cards with no form of rotation, so unless a card gets placed on the Forbidden and Limited list, it'll at least be hypothetically playable for all eternity. So oftentimes these powerful cards from yesteryear will remain powerful. Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, Pot of Greed, you get the point. So for times when these cards aren't on the Forbidden and Limited list, why not print other cards that are specifically made to counter them and only them? A powerful spell card meets a powerful trap card. Well, it isn't exactly that simple. Monster Reborn, a spell that allows you to summon one monster from the graveyard, meets its match in the trap card Call of the Grave, which reads, when your opponent activates Monster Reborn, negate the effect of Monster Reborn. Very simple, no ifs, ands, or buts. Though the artwork of this card is kinda creepy, nothing clever that relates to the iconography of Monster Reborn, just the face of a tormented ghoul. There is also the continuous trap card Call of Darkness, which sends any monster summoned by Monster Reborn back to the graveyard. It also prevents Monster Reborn from being activated while face up on the field. And believe it or not, this one is even slower because it can't even be chained to Monster Reborn itself, it needs to affect the monster that are summoned. The preventative effect is interesting, but also leaves it susceptible to destruction. Of course, as you would predict, the reason these cards never see play is because they only counter one card out of a 40 to 60 card deck. Even though these cards have no activation cost, they do have very specific activation requirements. Dark Hole is a spell card that destroys all monsters on the field, but White Hole is a trap card that can only be activated if your opponent plays Dark Hole. It prevents your own monsters from being destroyed. I do like the idea of it thematically, seeing not only the artwork but the trap card color contrasting the original gives it a very balanced look. This is the only countering card like this that is basically just the visually inverted version of the original, and it works so well in this case. It even has the potential to actively hurt your opponent because it doesn't negate the card effect but does protect your own monsters. But once again, it is way too specific despite the fact that Dark Hole right now is at 3 copies. Most monsters nowadays have their own protection or negation effects anyway, or they gain advantage or have ways of coming back from the graveyard when destroyed. Well, how about the more powerful version of Dark Hole, Raigeki? It destroys all monsters on your opponent's side of the field only. Well, it's countered by the creatively named Anti-Raigeki, which negates the effects and turns the destruction back on the user. This one is funny though, I'm really trying to figure out what the heck is going on in the artwork. I guess it's supposed to be some kind of lightning rod that not only absorbs Raigeki, but then also sends it back at the opponent. But it looks absolutely incomprehensible. That brings us to Harpy's Feather Duster, which destroys all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. It is countered by Griffin Wing, which basically just does the same thing as Anti-Raigeki, negating the effect and returning it back on the player who activated the original. Thematically, this one feels even lazier. I mean, I get that it's a griffin and it ties into the whole winged beast theme, but it doesn't even depict the griffin as stopping the effect of Feather Duster. You could tell me that this art was actually from a monster card and I would believe you. Of course, this card, as well as others, is simply outclassed by monsters with their own negation effects, or other negation trap cards that require a higher cost. Or even when it comes to other free cards, I just keep thinking of Starlight Road. Now, while all of the powerful spell cards I've gone over have become legal at 1 or 3 copies in modern times, there is one more classic card that I don't think will ever be unbanned. Pot of Greed, a spell card with an effect containing only 3 words. Draw 2 cards. Now for a few more cards, we have Jar Robber, a quick play spell that negates the effect of Pot of Greed and allows the user to draw 1 card. Dang, they couldn't even rub the whole thing, 1 card instead of 2? No way they would print a card that would simply allow you to draw 2 cards for free. I find this one funny because we see this goblin stealing the Pot of Greed. There are numerous other cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Telling the story of this greedy goblin and the Pot of Greed, so I at least like this card for the lore that it brings. But as an actual card, it just isn't good. It's all topped off by the fact that it is literally unplayable at this point in time due to Pot of Greed being banned. Oh, and yeah, like I've been saying the whole video, they're just better cards with a wider range of use. And so I think you can see why all of these cards are never talked about. With over 10,000 cards, there are some that are bound to be stinkers even if they were supposed to be counters to the absolute most powerful in the game. I guess I could see these maybe making it into a side deck for very casual games against friends who you know will be playing these cards. But other than that, they are some of the most useless cards, just again because they're way too specific. So let me know what you think about all of the counter cards we've gone over today and which one is your favorite. Like I said, White Hole's gotta be my favorite because it'll at least protect me from some mass destruction.